this thing on.
All right.
You know
There's,
what? That's the smallest thing that's ever got my hands.
there's a red light going, so it must be recording. Yep.
I heard I was the expert on that.
That one I know how to run.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Well, come over here and run it.
You want me to run that one for you?
I think we're good. I think I just turned it on and hit record.
Yep. And then anytime you want to pause it, just hit the red button to pause it, but when you're done, you hit stop.
Okay. Paul, I turned that on. That's running.
Thank you. So we'll call to order the meeting of the Northfield Fire District Facilities Committee of Monday, October 2nd. It's 5:31 p.m. Those present: Kevin Waldron, Commissioner Tim Statler, Lisa Martin, Nate Langione, Dennis Manning, Paul Blaisdell, Deputy Chief Sean Valvani from the Fire District. And whereas we have no agenda tonight, I think what we wanted to discuss was going to be the response times from the new, you know, if there was a station being placed at Sanborn Road, what were the response times for the calls that were presently, you know, on the record. And without the chief here, we don't have that. And Deputy Valvani has
I have no information on that. No.
information on it. Okay.
I'm gonna.
You're going to take a step back?
Hmm?
You're going to take a step back from that one?
Yeah, I don't want to present what I think. That's not usually a
It's
good.
Not a good idea.
No.
Shoot from the hip.
No, was the chief gonna be able to give us that data? Because I thought he said that they didn't really have, there's a software that they used to have that pinpointed when we had the 2016 committee. They actually had the software that did that back then.
He told me on Friday that he would have that information.
Oh, beautiful, okay.
Yeah. So I know he is able to like break up the calls by like district and then by town, but he's also able to do like response time radius of a location.
He may not be able to pinpoint the exact response time to a particular call, but he can say what the radius would have for a particular, you know, what the response time would be for a particular radius. So I think we'll wait upon that for our next meeting. The other thing I wanted to discuss was there's a lot of banter about what our informational meetings are, and I want to clarify exactly what our intention is. Or I guess what I'd like to do is discuss what our intention would be on these informational meetings, and I'd like input from all of you because I don't want to be imposing my will upon the group. So does anybody have any recommendations as far as what they would like to see these informational meetings be?
So I guess my first question is, are the commissioners involved with the meetings? Is Lorero involved with the meetings? Is
So
the fire department involved
The
with the meetings?
first meetings are going to be one member from this committee and one member from the Board of Commissioners. Lorero, at some point, once we get a final plan, will be involved in presenting that final plan during informational meetings. Those are formal meetings. Those are going to be almost like public hearings. They're not public hearings, but they will be similar to that.
Okay, so that's the public outreach that's part of the contract. Gotcha.
Correct. What we're looking to do now is, or what my intention is, and again, I don't want to impose my will upon everybody, what my intention now was to do is just to update the community. Where we are, what we're doing, get the community up to speed with what's going on. Lisa?
Well, I think part of the bantering is there should be an outline for each meeting that we have. And I think what's in your head is different than what's in your head than what is in your head. until you put it on paper.
Okay,
So
So
I
you
took
have
the
paper.
liberty,
okay.
it's a draft, because
Okay.
obviously this is what's in my head. It's probably different than your head. And that was my only point, is that, like, I've done a lot of public meetings, and I've never, ever shown out
Thank you.
without an outline of what I want to say.
One more, please.
Yeah.
Presenters.
If you need extra for, so essentially, that when you hold a meeting, you don't get lost if you have an agenda. There are also, at many meetings, people will hear what you say and they will take home maybe 80%. Then they go tell somebody else. And that gets, it's like the tin can or the whole, so a handout is very nice to have. If you know what you want to say, you can give a handout that just summarizes, just bullet points, that summarizes where we've been, what we've done to date. And then it's organized and we don't kind of go off the path.
Okay.
But I mean, and this is just a draft, but I did want to jump back, because I have a really, when we had our last meeting,
Oh, yeah, I already did that.
well, let's go back a few minutes, maybe I'm going off topic. But Matt Ozier made a huge point in the last meeting, and I did not realize it until I got home. He said Center Street has a value, it's an asset. Zillow had it at $350,000. It's an asset. What we've looked at and said, oh, Sanborn Road is the cheapest site. Well, it's not, because to get Sanborn Road, you give up an asset that's worth, we can argue about numbers, but Zillow says 350,000. We're gonna spend 80,000 probably tearing it down and another 20 paving it, because that'll be in the future. So you're gonna spend another 100 grand. It means that you are taking $450,000 of the taxpayers' money and you're putting it towards the Sanborn site. Not Sanborn, Sanborn Road site. That now makes that the more costly site with site.
So it's my understanding that the existing building has to be removed regardless?
No, you can sell it.
Why would you think it has to be removed regardless?
It can't be used as it's not a fire, it's not good for a fire station.
But my understanding was there was
There is
lead, asbestos, and then obviously, like, it's not ADA compliant, which wouldn't be an issue for like a single family home, but.
Here's the biggest issue. You take one step off that stair, the front stairs, you're no longer on fire department property. You're now on the street, okay? So the lot that building is on is essentially the size of the building, with the exception of the backside. It goes to the edge of where the railroad tracks are. But other than that, that building is essentially the lot. So what you're gonna do is, Lisa's got a good point, you could sell it, but you can only sell it if you find a buyer. So the buyer has to be looking for a building that is 160 years old, that has no space around it. It's got parking because all of those parking spots are public parking. But that's all it's got. And it's got lead. The asbestos, I don't think that there's asbestos other than maybe the floor tiles, but I think those have all been removed, haven't they?
There's still some floor tiles underneath. So there is a covering. I don't know if they're asbestos or not, though. I don't think they're old enough to be asbestos.
I don't think asbestos was the big thing. I think the big thing was the lead paint on the windows. And what happened when I was commissioner years ago, what the chief did was he abated the lead that was at ground level where children could reach it. And the only lead paint is on the upstairs windows, the window areas on the outside and on the siding. So that's all of the, I don't want to exaggerate what the hazardous material is there. I think the lead is the extent of it.
So it was my understanding that the station was being torn down and quotes, or at least a quote had been, received for what that cost would be prior to the Sanborn Road property coming into the discussion.
There was a number thrown around of $80,000 to have that torn down. And that was a number that had been obtained several years ago. Just, it was not a formal quote, it was nothing etched in stone.
No, there is a form of quote.
And you heard Jim say that he has a company in Manchester that does work that for them, that could do that for much less than that. So,
Right, but I guess my point is like, isn't that building being removed regardless of the,
no,
No.
it doesn't have to
There's
be.
no requirement to tear it down.
It doesn't have to be.
The district can keep it if they want to store things.
Who says the town Hill's not the buyer, regardless? You know,
So my point was, we all went with, oh, it costs less. Well, Matt's point was, no, it does not. Because you're giving up an asset
Well-
to purchase property. That being said, we had all agreed we weren't gonna run with the design of anything on any property we didn't own prior with it. But we went through the RFQ process. It was my opinion, and my thought is, the second we chose that we thought Sanborn Road was the best site, it's pencils down until we secure that property. Because otherwise, we're doing the same thing we've done over and over. Looking at a site here, looking at a site there that we don't own. So if there's no purchase and sales agreement in place, we stop.
Well, what was the agreement that we have in place? There must be some formal agreement between the.
it's gotta go to the voters.
It's gotta go to the voters
Well, right.
until,
Well, everything has to go to the voters.
no, until Tilton has
Right,
to
but
approve.
everything has to go to the
Yes.
voters. Everything we're doing is going to the voters,
Right.
everything Tilton.
And my point is, don't make them go simultaneously, because if Tilton turns it down, we've designed a station on a property that we can't own,
Right.
and that's a risk.
Personally, I don't see that happening, but yes, that's a risk.
that's right.
But I
But we
also,
had all
but I
agreed
also
that-
believe putting almost a $500,000 value on that property is irresponsible as well. To say,
Well,
oh,
we
it's
could have
no
it
longer
appraised.
it's no longer a cheaper thing because Zillow and I don't know. You've got the quote. What was it? What's the
Well,
quote?
the quote, he has a quote for
So what's
Right.
the,
whatever. I mean, like I said, we can argue about the building value. You can always have it appraised. And we don't know the value of the Sanborn Road land either, do we? Have we had that appraised?
no, it's because it's not a separate lot.
Right. So all I'm saying is, it's probably, we're giving up an asset to get Sanborn Road. So that's not zero, it's a cost. Whether it's, you want to value it at 100,
Oh,
Zillow
absolutely,
wants
it's
to
a
be
cost. I think
350.
we all agreed
But
to that.
we all were gonna tell the public, oh, it's less expensive. Well, it's not.
So
Well,
necessarily.
but we came up with almost a $2.5 million difference.
No, on site work alone.
Okay, on site
The
work
building
alone.
cost is $351 per square foot, whether it's at Park Street or whether it's here. Then, now we get to massage the buildings to what the committee, we haven't
Right.
even
So there
looked
there
at
was
that.
quite a difference in terms of the total cost for the buildings as well as the site work between the locations. But I think we should table this and circle back and approve the minutes so we can get that out of the way. And then we can move to the dates of these informational meetings, if we're having them.
We can
And
approve the
then we can
minutes
figure out.
anytime.
But right
Right,
now,
but I
the
just
clock
figured if we
is
get it
ticking.
out of the way, then we
We
have the rest of
have,
the
we have until 7:30 to approve the minutes. I'm not worried about getting them out
Right,
of
the
the
only
way.
reason I'm bringing these points up is the clock is ticking. If we want those engineers and contractor to keep going, we've changed direction. We need to, as a committee, we had said, no, we're not gonna design something on something we don't own. Now, if you wanna take, that's why I'm bringing it up. I don't think we should design something on something we don't own, but I do like the Sanborn Road site. So, and we
It's a
haven't
good-
determined response times or anything else.
It's a good point. That being said, we've made a recommendation. I know that it's as for a site, so I don't think it's worth discussing the two sites until, and then I guess really it's ultimately the commissioner's decision, and I know they haven't reached one yet, so we should probably wait for them to make an actual location selection before we start putting stuff together for the meeting as far as like actual materials, announcing the dates.
Tim?
Hi.
Hi. Can you fill us in on the discussion that the commissioners had at their last meeting with regards to the selection of a site and why there was no decision made?
Yeah, absolutely. The conversation, Lisa was there to sort of give us an update on the meeting that you had that I was not at. We had concerns and questions about, as Lisa indicated, how the transaction of a property swap would happen, what was involved in that, and then obviously what she's just verbalized here, moving forward without having, ownership of that property. So taking a step back, the commissioners have a verbal agreement with the town of Tilton to do a exchange for there's a specific amount of space up there, there's a square footage of space up there that they've offered in exchange for the property on Center Street with the building removed and the parking lot paved, or the site paved so that it could become parking. Obviously, that has to go before the voters, but there was some discussion as to the verbiage, as to whether it was I don't know if I have the right terms, if it was an advisory warrant article, because the selectmen do have some flexibility to do some property sales of this sort. And I'm perfectly happy to have anybody with more experience explain how that works.
Is there any way that the commissioners can determine whether that is advisory language or?
Well, we were asking for an update because obviously the town of Tilton was putting that forth with their legal counsel to make sure that that warrant article could be developed in a manner that was appropriate. But the selectmen were all in favor of, they're on board with having a fire station on Sanborn Road and having more parking downtown. So if they can do that without it costing the town any money, it's a no-brainer for them.
So when do you think the commissioners are going to find out whether this is something that the Board of Selectmen can do without town approval?
We were waiting for to hear back from the town.
Okay. So it's possible you'll hear by tomorrow, but doubtful.
When was the last time the commission reached out to the town for an update?
Last Wednesday.
Okay.
The other issue was that
Well, let's stop. Let's resolve one issue.
Okay.
Let's resolve one issue at a time. So, what I suggest is that if you're adamant that we put a pause on things, then we should put a pause. I suggest that we should put a pause until we get a definitive answer from the Board of Selectmen in Tilton as to whether or not this is an advisory warrant article, or whether they have the ability.
I'm not sure that's the right terminology, but.
Or whether they have the ability to formally make that transaction, real estate transaction, without the townspeople voting on it. And if they do have that ability, what is their intent? Because if their intent is to make that happen, then we should be able to move forward if we get their intent in writing. Okay? Does everyone agree with that?
I think the only other key thing that we all need to keep in mind is, if we don't build the fire station there, they're not offering the property.
Okay,
We never asked, can we just buy the property?
well,
And that was
if we don't-
sort of not their intention. Their intention was that this is a nice trade. This works out for the town, it works out for the fire department.
So what you're saying is that there is no trade if we build a fire station at Park Street and nothing at Sanborn Road?
Or if our
Right.
project gets voted down by the fire district, at the fire district meeting.
It's all contingent upon the station being approved to be built at Sanborn Road, correct?
I don't know why they wouldn't agree to convey it either way, because that property has restrictions on it.
Well, and I don't think we pressed on that issue, and that was part of the conversation we had last week was, all right, what's the plan B if we decide that we want to build on Sanborn Road and for some reason we're not able to tear down the fire station and convey the property over? What's plan B with the town of Tilton for that Sanborn
And
Road
that's
property?
what I was gonna bring up. It's
I
not
mean-
actually a separate issue. It is, the building is eligible for the historic register. However, Chief followed up with the state, and they're not required to follow the section 106 unless you get federal funding. So, but
We
the
can do
district
whatever
can
we
do
want.
whatever you want with it.
Right.
He found that out.
So who-
That was one of the directives of the commissioners to him.
Who
to make
determined
sure.
that that was a good deal?
The commissioners in the town of Selectmen at our meeting where we sat and chatted about it.
The town has that at 205,300.
So they have it on the tax card form.
Okay, so how does everyone feel about waiting to hear what the Board of Commissioners say tomorrow night, and possibly at their next meeting with respect to ownership of the property at Sanborn Road? Will that put Lisa's mind at ease?
If
with
we have an
respect to
agreement, I
ownership.
think, well, it's not just me, we all had decided, remember, we weren't even gonna look at any other sites. We were all running on the 2019 report, if you recall. And then this option of Sanborn Road came up, and we said it would be irresponsible of us to not look at Sanborn Road. So we looked at Sanborn Road, but we, at the time, everyone in the committee had said, we didn't wanna design a station unless we owned the site.
And you won't own that land until after March of '24.
So I guess-
at the earliest.
I'm saying, does everybody agree that you
That's
wanna
not-
keep
that-
moving
That's not
forward
necessarily true if.
if
what
you have an
Tim-
agreement?
Exactly, if what Tim is saying is that it's not, and that the Board of Selectmen have the right to transfer that real estate, if that's the case,
Yeah.
then that's,
But as part of that transfer requires cash on behalf of the fire district, which the fire district does not have and cannot spend.
You mean to tear it down?
Well,
It
meaning
would
it
have to
has
get
to be
voted,
approved.
that would have to get approved.
Whatever would have to be approved.
Doesn't the
So the
district
transfer
have
can't
discretionary
take place
spending
until
from the
after.
towers?
Right. After the,
but not after the Tilton Town meeting, after the
Fire district.
district meeting, yes.
Right, and
So,
that
so
wouldn't
we
happen
need to
until
wait
after.
until
So if
we
you,
get an update from the fire commissioners on the property situation then.
Well,
Well, I
Some-
think
we-
if
we
you have
just
a
need
written
to-
agreement, we're
Which
good.
counts as an update.
Well, honestly, the district itself is the only entity that would really hem it up. If we have an agreement, and if the voters, because the fire district's gonna know. Fire district's gonna know, because the fire district meetings are always the Monday after that Saturday when, the town meeting. So,
right,
when we go into a district meeting, we will know what the town of Tilton has voted. And again, I'm fairly confident, I can't say it's anecdotal, but I'm fairly confident that the townspeople of Tilton will vote in favor of that deal. Why wouldn't we? It's advantageous to the town of Tilton. So when we go into that meeting, it's up to the district at that point, whether or not the fire station fails.
So
I
if
mean,
there's
if
some
no one's gonna build a
chance-
building, I mean, why the hell does the district need a land if the district voted against building a building?
Future.
And my recollection is we're going about this a little differently than committees in the past have. Because in the past, you've hired an architect, they've come up with some space needs, they've come up with some drawings that shows floor plans and what the building would look like from the outside for this piece of property or that piece of property. And you're voting to approve that, but they haven't done engineering and they haven't, you haven't purchased the property yet and they haven't gone out and looked at what, all these various things are gonna cost. They've come up with an estimate. So I'm not, we're going about this differently, this design-build process, and we're going to spend more money to get to that town meeting vote. So I sat here and said, well, we've done this in the past and we didn't own the property, but we're going about this differently. So do we need to own the property?
Well, if you design,
The
if
station design
they,
for Samlin Road is gonna be different than the station design anyway.
Correct.
Absolutely.
So if the idea is to get an agreement, if you will, a written agreement between the town of Tilton and Board of Commissioners, and then spend money on the design for that land that you don't own, that's where you lose me.
And in the past, we've done designs for property we don't own, but we haven't spent,
100.
we haven't spent $100,000 and it hasn't been to do all the engineering and all the other.
Well, they don't do all the engineering, what they do is enough to give you a guaranteed maximum price. But it's still, you're gonna spend
Which is
that
more,
full-
which is a point farther down the
Right.
road than
Right.
past committees.
And we've already, we delayed them anyway, but they may still be able to meet the March deadline. But from the get-go, they gave us a schedule and we didn't sign a contract for like 2 months later, so we keep squishing and squishing, and now it's like, hurry up, and I'm like, okay, we're hurrying up, but what direction are we going in?
The other points that came up at the meeting, if I could, there was concern about trying to rush this, and again, being able to advertise it and get buy-in before the meeting. And there was the same concern we've heard before about, station over here, station over there. These people won't vote for a station over here, those people won't vote for a station over there. Some minor things came up about, would the state give us a curb cut, how far down in front of Park Street, and what else? There was a couple other concerns that came up that the chief was looking into for us.
One of the
So those
things
were all
they said-
concerns. Those
They
were all
did say
concerns
for
that
us to
came up.
continue. They did say for the building
But
continue.
they want the building committee to continue, absolutely.
Looking at
We
the
want the
space
building committee
needs
to
and-
continue.
So then I guess what do we do until the commissioners have an update on the location?
Well, I think we keep moving forward with,
The plan.
we need to move forward with what does the space needs look like? We were looking at properties with no sense of how many square feet we need, and now we're up to 20,000 plus square feet, which I think a lot of us don't. We'll sit
I don't
here
think
in
it's gonna
retrospect
pass.
and go,
We're gonna
where did that number come from?
Well, no, so
That seems like a lot of square footage.
the new square footage is only like 15,000 square feet.
Well, it's somewhere in there it says 20,000 square feet came up, so.
So that is if we tear down the existing Park Street station and then rebuild that and do the addition.
I think a lot of it just comes up out of what they determine for space needs as far as 12 bays and all of that stuff.
Yeah, it's all getting us to 12 bays.
So
which is why
anyway,
there's
we as a
discrepancy
committee
between the
haven't
two
had
sites.
those discussions.
Right, and we still.
But that's not
need
our
to.
decision.
No.
That's
But we
your
can make,
decision.
It's not,
we
it's
can make
not our decision, but
recommendations.
it's a discussion that we have to have and a recommendation that the commissioners are asking us to provide.
Because the
But it's not our
Lorero
decision.
has had the conversation with the fire department as to put together this assessment of needs. I think it's the committee's role to look at that with a critical eye and question so that it makes sense and it's, what the taxpayers will understand and be willing to pay for.
Right, we don't wanna propose something and have
So
it voted
I think
down.
the committee does need to have that.
Right. And that's why I've
Do
never
that
really understood
process
the
with
race
Lorero.
to March. Because we've always been on that race to March. How many committees have been on a race to March and failed?
Right,
And you know, and like, you know, there was a lot of stuff there really wasn't enough discussion, even on the 2016 committee that I sat on. We went with Tilton School, and again, like I said, I was never really in favor of the land site for that. That was a huge expense with the land itself, you know, excavation and all that. And to like Kevin's point, you know, the buildings are different. You know, the design for the building was on that with all of that money that went to it. But to your other point about money, where you say we lose you, and you know, I will say, I also get lost in the fact that, I mean, I just look at how many thousands of dollars have we spent over the years on these committees with designs and stuff like that. You know, we owe it to ourselves. I don't look as myself, I'm not a fire facility member. I'm a taxpayer in the town of Tilton. I'm a district, I'm a Tilton Northfield district taxpayer as well. So looking at that, I mean, I think, you know, my whole thing has been, we have to do due diligence for all of us, not my opinion, not your opinion, anybody's, but for all. And obviously, we need that consensus at the district meeting. But I think, you know, if we say, let's just say, right now, we say, you know what, yep, we decided that building's worth $500,000, it's not the cheapest, let's jump back, we recommend now to the selectmen, let's go with Northfield alone. Knowing that other option's on the table, you can't take that out of anybody's minds now.
well, we don't want
That-
to.
right,
My
but my
point was
point is-
not that, to change
No,
direction
I'm
again.
not saying that was your
My
point.
point was to take the time and do it right. We
Right.
want taxpayers to pass a bond vote, whether it's this March or the following.
Right. And I wasn't saying that was your
Right.
point, but I'm saying if we were to reverse, I think that would be shooting ourselves in the foot as well. Because once you say, hey, we had an option, but we took it off the table because we wanted to go back, we decided this. And again, I think due diligence is that's my watch phrase. You know what? We just owe ourselves due diligence. Has taken us how many years now? How many committees and how much money have we wasted on it?
So let me ask this of the committee. With the 2-month time that we lost, do you think it's unreasonable, or do you think it's foolish to be pushing this towards a 2024 district meeting?
Dennis used the term race to March. That's where we've been at before.
Mhm.
That's where we are again.
Yeah,
And I'm saying stop the
never,
race.
and it's obviously, because us sitting here right now, obviously, it's proof that it's never been successful.
But I think these public meetings are important. Now we say, this is what we looked at, we give them the results of those meetings.
Okay, how does everyone feel about the race to March? Should we take a step back and say, okay, let's catch our breath, let's shoot for 2025 instead of 2024? Or do you think we should press forward?
I don't think it would hurt, because, I mean, if we rush and we fail again, now how many more years are we behind, other than one? I mean, we could potentially be a year behind, but are we behind? That's just, I don't know. I mean, that date is just a pie in the sky right now. But like to Tim's point, you know, we can take care of, we can get a lot done. We're gonna wait. We're talking about waiting now to see what the selectmen want to do for an agreement, selectmen of Tilton, that is. We wanna wait on that. We really haven't done a good assessment, like Tim was saying. He's like, you know, maybe we should focus our efforts on designing exactly what we need for needs assessment and design, because the needs assessment's not gonna change whether it's Northfield or I mean, it may look different as far as buildings, but the actual
It'll
needs.
look different.
So my point isn't that we shouldn't keep moving forward.
Right.
My point is spending design money on something that we haven't even reviewed the space needs. But the engineers there, they have to run if they want to meet March.
I mean, it seems like we're stuck until the land agreement gets figured out, so, you know, if that's not gonna give us enough time to have something that's votable you know, this March. I would not be opposed to next March. But I just think, you know, we shouldn't like take our foot off the brake. Like if we do choose 2025, we should still, I would say, like try and meet the current milestones if they don't require us spending money.
So your target is still 2024, but you're not opposed to taking a step back if we can hit a schedule.
I think even if we choose deliberately 2025, we should not step back in terms of like trying to, you know, make progress.
I think I understand. Lisa?
I think we ought to move forward just like, we, the committee, should move forward just like it's gonna happen in March.
Okay.
Because you don't know that once we go through the space needs, which we have to say, you know, does this even look reasonable, this many square feet? Like it gives, the committee should keep moving.
I'm not
We
saying
may get
abandon
to a-
anything.
We
don't
may
think
get to a
Dennis is, you know-
point, I guess we should decide that, okay, all I was bringing up with the point of us not owning the land is, we don't want to make the same mistake again, designing something for something we don't own. But I think we still can review square footages for the Sanborn Road site. We can look at Park Street if we want to, but we should keep going. I don't know that there should be a pause in the design, then that's the commissioner's choice, because that saves taxpayer money. We're going to spend it again once we move forward again. But I don't, the race for them to March can hurt us financially.
Tim?
I think I agree with most everything that's said, and that's a good way of putting it. Racing to March may hurt us. And just going back to the space needs and how critical it is, I was thinking about this when I was traveling. And we were talking about 40-foot by 20-foot bays, and that's why I sort of prompted that note I sent you for the meeting on this. 20 by 40-foot bay is compared to a 38 by 18-foot bay. So it's 2 foot narrower, 2 foot shorter. At $351 a square foot, that's $40,000, almost $41,000 a bay. And if you put 12 bays in there, that's $500,000.
Right.
Because you want the base to be 2 feet wider and 2 feet longer. Now, granted, so hopefully somebody can have that discussion with us as how big the bays really need to be, but you can't sell me that we need 12 40-foot bays. We may
Right.
need a few 40-foot bays, but we certainly don't need 12 40-foot bays. But that's the kind of question, you know,
That's where
we need to have that
need to keep
conversation
going.
because, you know, I want to add this extra room here, and okay, that's another $40,000 for that extra dorm room. It's an extra. You want to make it 2 floors? Well, there's an extra $100,000 in stairwells. It's like it's just. And granted, all the space isn't equal in value, but. So I sat there I watched the whole 2+ hour meeting you had on the 19th, including the 20 minutes of reading the minutes. And I read the minutes of that meeting and said, well, there's a lot of corrections there. And Courtney's learning.
She's doing fine so far.
She's doing fine.
She's doing
Yeah,
And
she's
I
doing a
just-
great job.
right.
Being 2 weeks, one without Kathy.
And I got the minutes to the commissioners meeting from last week, and they're a huge improvement. So she's making great strides. That all being said, I sat there and watched.
Thumbs up to Courtney.
Thumbs up to Courtney. Yeah, another couple of weeks here, well, she'll be doing great. I sat there watching the minutes of that meeting as a taxpayer, member of the committee, commissioner, I don't know what. And a few things came to my mind. We've been at this for a long time. We keep saying that years and years. And I come up with about 5 different groups of voters / taxpayers in town. And I won't go into all the detail, but you know, there are those Tilton voters who won't vote for a single station over Northfield, and we've got a group of people who think everything is fine and we don't need to spend a cent, and we've got a group of people who goes, we'll just stick an addition on for a few $100,000 and we're good to go. You know, you come up with all these groups. And then analyzing calls, because I get all the calls, thanks to Sean over here who put that app on my phone. I finally got it to not beep every time. It's like toning me out. A lot of the calls are downtown, just as we know. And when you look at the old call maps, and the biggest group is down here, and then you get Northfield, and then you get exit 20, and then you've got the outlying space. And that really hasn't changed. There are days where we run up to Highlands 3 times a day, but they have EMTs on site, and so things are, you know, a little more under control there than needing to be their staff. But to me, I always had that discussion. Well, moving out to Park Street is going to raise the response time for a lot of calls. Well, moving up to Sanborn Road increases the response time for, in my opinion, even more calls. Or, if not more calls, it's farther away, and you've got all those intersections to go through. So I'm thinking to myself, if we can't come up with a one-station solution that's somewhere between exit 20 and the current Center Street station, then it starts to become obvious we have to have a 2-station solution. And after the meeting and looking at the Park Street, it's like, all right, well, maybe that would be a better location for a smaller station than the other location, wherever that might be, for the larger station, due to issues with the site, and that'd be a substation. But it's how do you get the taxpayers to pay for a station, thinking that there'll be another station at some point down the road? Well, what's that? 5 years? 10 years?
Exactly.
160 years?
You can't do that unless you approve the money for that 5-year station now. Because in 5 years, that new group of taxpayers come and say, yeah, I don't think so.
So anyway, a long
But
story
then you
short,
never
thank
get
you for indulging me, but I'm sitting there, how do we get a station up there approved? It's going to be as difficult, in my opinion, as getting a station down there approved. Because you're going to have those voters who, I'm not spending X amount of money regardless of which place you choose. And you've got those voters who, well, I'm not voting for it if it's in Northfield, and I'm not voting for it if it's up there in Sanborn Road. And you know, we've talked about in this committee years ago that we need to bring everybody in to demonstrate that we've asked all these questions, we've looked at all these issues, and well, this is why this makes sense. Well, after watching that meeting and thinking about it, I don't know that that makes sense, that I would be able to sell that to the taxpayers. And I think that was sort of some of the questioning that we had at our meeting last week, especially, you know, Commissioner Ozier. I think he's really, really challenged by being up at Sanborn Road and what that does to the response time. If it was easy, we would have built the station sometime in
It'd
the
be
past
done by
160 years.
Yeah, if this
And
was
it's the
going
same
down-
problem we
Did it
had
50 years ago.
It's the same problem we've had for years here. So I don't think rushing to next March is going to help us, because I think if I have all these questions and concerns, people who are going to show up to vote are going to have them too. And that goes back to that. We have to be able to, united front, be able to demonstrate that this is the best solution for the money, and I'm not sure we're there yet.
Well, I'll tell you, personally, after this conversation, what I do want to work on is I took this great course when I was doing my master's. Doc Hershenson, brilliant man, about 80 some odd years old, taught. It was ethical decision making. And we focused on the hermeneutic model of ethical decision making. And frankly, I'm going to work on that, because I'm going to try to think of, and I'll solicit you all too, is, you know, the hermeneutic model, you look at it, it's just a big circle, and you know, on the outskirts of the circle, you look at all the stakeholders. And you got to think of all the stakeholders. We're stakeholders. Sean's a stakeholder. Even the transient population, travelers, are stakeholders in how we do business here in our district. You know, exit 20. It's, you know, I know some people are like, I don't need to pay for exit 20. Well, people have accidents there all the time with out-of-state plates, and they're not residents of the town of Tilton. We just have to be, we just happen to be the focal point of many, many travelers. So we have that, so I mean, they sit in there too. And so what I'm looking to do is maybe, again, with everybody else's input, so we can think of all the different things, is like, so each of these stakeholders, we need to be able to articulate the, you know, why we would do what. What being, we don't know right now, but whatever we do, we need to be able to articulate why we're doing it for each of those stakeholders. And then it comes down to math, pretty much, because you do the ratio, it's, you know, it's like, okay, pros and cons, which ones outweigh the others, obviously, that's how you do decision making, but with that model, I think if we could actually look at it, and then actually articulate that to the public as well, as to why decisions are being made, that will be a help. It's not a guarantee, but.
Because I think, like, if you take the money out of it, say it wasn't gonna cost taxpayers anything,
Right.
would you vote for that location? Would you vote for that location? Based on all those other factors. And, you know, I think for a lot of people, you know, the population's gonna continue to age, response time's important.
Mhm.
Does anyone know how many kids we have in the school?
Off the top of my head, no, probably the high school is probably close to 400, I think. And then you're looking
Oh,
at.
is it that?
Is it
I-
that much?
I don't know, maybe it's down
Maybe.
now.
Or was I thinking it was
Well,
like 1,000?
population is
Oh,
going down.
God, no.
No, I was gonna say like 1,700, 1,800.
Yeah, maybe in the whole district
But that
from-
includes Senate and Central.
You know, that's K to 12, maybe that much.
I mean, there's a lot going on in town, when you think about it. We've got the Veterans Home up there.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the whole commercial side of Exit 20. Well, Sean could better talk into this. You know, we've got a lot of
I mean,
older,
I think the most vulnerable people are the elderly
right?
and the school kids. And guess where they are?
Right down here. Well, they're actually over there.
Right, but on that note, again, that's getting go if it doesn't match. I mean, because we can look statistically, like to what Tim was saying. That's what I've said before. We look, and it's pretty much stayed the same. It's a constant. The constants are. You're right. You're absolutely right. The constants are the senior citizen villages, whatever you want to call them. You know, we've got the one over there in Tilton. We got the one right down on Summer Street. So yeah, those are. But we also have, I mean, there's some stuff moving to the outskirts. You have we still have a lot of elderly that are in their own homes and whatnot.
Well, right, the elderly staying at home.
Right.
Talk
So,
about all the pros and cons of that, but they're also the same people on fixed incomes that have the hardest time paying for a.
but I think when it comes down to the response times, I think we should really adhere to what we come up with statistical, you know, what it shows. I mean, because we used to have them like plotted,
Yep, we did.
and we're plotted in the
Different
circles and how that
coloration.
goes. However it shakes out, it shakes out.
But that model you just spoke of, I think is a good piece of the pie.
That is, I mean, because
What did you call it? Modal hoodle?
it's the hermeneutic model of ethical decision making.
Sounds like somebody's name.
You said
I
was
think
an
it
old
goes
guy.
back. What was that?
Greek.
It's Greek, yeah. That was no, it wasn't the god. It wasn't Hermes, but it was.
But anyway,
One of those.
we're taking, and the frustration I have, and you know, one of the reasons that you don't want to talk about it is the charge from the commissioners originally was based on the 2019 committee was to put together a proposal for a
For
station
one station?
One station
Down
at Park.
at Park Street. So it's like we've already,
It's changed.
you know, the committee already moved to that site, and here we are now talking about where's the best location for it. But I do like that from the standpoint that, right, how are you going to address all these different mindsets? Because it's not just, is it too expensive, and it's not just the location. There's a lot more to it. There's a lot more.
Right. That's why I made the statement in the past. It's like, if you're not going to build what you need, then why are you building? That's, you know, that's been my watch. I mean, if you're not going to build what you need, what are you doing? Like I said, if you build something you don't need, it's going hard.
We paid,
Is building something better than building nothing? Yes.
Well, if it's not what you need,
I
I mean,
believe so.
Well,
But see, so we paid X amount, I don't know how much we paid for that space needs portion of this. And then, and I've heard many people say, you hire professionals to do the job and you let them do it. And now I'm hearing we're gonna take that space needs and we're gonna look and say, yeah, no.
no, they're going by what we gave them, though. Lorero's only going by, I think, what the chief gave him for space
That's right.
needs. So nobody's second guessing the engineers on this.
But we're about to, because we just talked about.
No,
about
we're telling them what we
dumping
want to
$500,000 off
design.
it by shrinking the bays.
Well, we don't even know what they're giving us for bays, so
Yeah.
how
That,
do we even
And
ask
if
the
they talk to
question?
the
Oh,
chief,
it's
they're
in
giving you
that-
the
it's in
40
that.
by.
well,
There's a
right, well, that's what I'm
spreadsheet.
saying. I think everything that they're looking at right now is
You're right.
based solely on what the chief gave them for space needs. If I may be wrong, but I think that's.
No, I think you're probably right. I
I
don't
mean,
know what
they've
you're
probably
saying.
already spent the bulk of their 100,000, but that's okay, that's what we wanted them to do, right? To give us some information.
But I am confident, once we come to a point, it's like, okay, once everybody's in agreement, what we're gonna do for space needs, you know, whether, look, the space needs isn't gonna be, we're not gonna argue the points as like, okay, what do they have to have for the decon and all that stuff. I think what I foresee, and again, I may be wrong, is how many bays do we need, how big do the damn bays need to be? I think that's what it's really gonna boil down to. And then, you know, how many can we suffice with right now if we wanna build in the future? That's what I've been gathering from a lot of this stuff, but.
Right.
And there's only a certain size station that fits on Sanborn Road,
Right,
so that limits right there.
well, both places really.
Both places,
Yeah.
so.
Do you know how much land we may get up there? Up there by up there, I mean, San.
I might be able to.
You know, I'm gonna look into that as well, myself, for personal, as a resident of
'Cause
Tilton.
I was trying to see
'Cause
it
I'm
on
gonna try
the,
to hammer down the,
on the
Select
GIS, and I
non-site.
think it still shows it as one lot.
So,
Oh,
we've
they
got
call-
8 minutes until you need to leave, so we probably should.
well, you guys
Vote
can still
on
approve
them.
the minutes without me, but.
What's your opinion, Kevin?
Hmm?
What's your opinion?
I don't like the race, I mean, and I think an actual upside to 25 is interest rates. Because you're gonna borrow 5, 6, 7 million bucks. And if you get a point less, I mean, I don't think it's gonna go, if it does go higher, it'll start to dump, I think, by then, because the economy's gonna bottom out. I mean, and 1 point or half a point on 7 million, how much is that, Sean?
That's a lot.
It's a lot of money. And, you know, and that may also, commissions are willing, I mean, that may also give us another opportunity to put some more money away.
But as an alibi, I was
I'll
never
never vote
suggesting
against
that we
putting money
wait.
in. I love
I agree to
saving
be moving.
So
I'm
I'll
just
never
saying,
vote against putting money away.
my point is,
I
you know,
like saving money.
if come February, we're not ready to put a warrant forth, we shouldn't.
Right.
That's really my point with the race to 25. I shouldn't say, we shouldn't sit on our laurels. I think we need to be moving and moving forward.
We need to
It
keep,
can still be our goal,
Right.
but
think it's-
we shouldn't be disappointed if we don't make it, because we shortened it. We shortened the
Right.
contractor schedule from the get-go.
And I can't, and again, I can't imagine any taxpayers in either town of the district being like, why the hell are you guys waiting to get your stuff together, you know?
Right.
I don't think anybody's going, you're not putting a warrant forward? Are you kidding me? What the hell?
you
You know?
won't get that.
No, you're not gonna get that, absolutely.
So the lot size up there, I think what they were gonna make available to us was about 2.3 acres.
2.3 acres.
But
All right. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes of 9:19?
I make a motion to accept the minutes of 9:19.
I'll second it.
And seconded it? Any discussion?
Yes.
Lisa?
I just do want Matt's comments in there, and Matt was the one that, and it's too bad he's not here, that did mention that Center Street has a value.
Center Street, what?
He's the one that actually, if you go to page 2, the 3 of 3, page 3, second paragraph down. He said he asked why Center Street would be torn down instead of sold. In that statement, he said Zillow has the value of the building at $350,000. He made that statement because otherwise I wouldn't have known that. His point was that it had a value, whether it's $350, we can't argue. That actually was said in the meeting. I think if Matt were here, he would say,
Well,
yes, I said that.
He's not here, so I don't know if we can change the minutes based upon our
Listen to the
recollection.
recording. Okay, she could go back and listen to
Yeah.
the recording.
If-
I wish he were here, because he would have said,
I wish he was here every week, but he's not.
Yeah, Matt was ill tonight.
because he does bring a good
He brings a
perspective
lot.
to the committee.
So does Derek, and Derek's not never here either.
So that's 100,098 square feet.
Drives me nuts. Okay, are there any other changes to the minutes? And Courtney, could you please verify whether Matt said that the value of Center Street was $350,000? Thank you.
Based on Zillow. He made
Based
that
on
statement.
Zillow.
And that
Okay.
was pretty late in the meeting, as I recall.
It was the end of the meeting.
Okay. Any other changes? Okay, all those in favor of the amended minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the minutes of 9/19 are approved.
And on that note,
Our next meeting, no, before you go,
Oh.
our next meeting, our next meeting is, not next Tuesday, but our next meeting is October 23rd at 5:30 right here. October 23rd.
Doesn't the budget committee have a meeting that night? Here.
They do? Okay.
I just got an email today. I just don't wanna,
The budget committee, no, we have a meeting scheduled for the 30th.
no, that's for the budget workshop. This is the budget committee itself.
Oh, the budget committee is.
I just got the,
My birthday.
she just sent out the monthly calendar. And on the monthly calendar, let me look at, hold on, pull it up. The budget committee's meeting on the 20th and 23rd. Maybe that's a mistake. But it says Tilton Town, building committee. Sorry, I read it wrong.
Building committee on the 23rd.
Sorry, that's my bad.
Because we're the
Okay.
second and,
So the 23rd of October, right here, at 5:30
I
is our
am
next
not
meeting.
able to be here for that.
Okay, oh, Tim,
So I'm not sure if my wife's made plans yet or not.
Just a point of note, with our schedule, we'd be meeting on December 25th, which is Christmas, so we probably want
Minor
to
detail.
you don't wanna.
reschedule that at some point.
I don't know,
Every day.
about 5:30, I'm ready to leave the house. Sorry.
Sounds good to me.
Courtney, don't put that.
I heard it in my good ears.
Nobody play this for his wife.
Talking smack about the family, no talking about burning down fire stations, none of that stuff.
None of
on
that
public. Right?
Some of those nieces and nephews are.
What about
We'll
no
we'll cross
definition
that bridge
talks?
when we get to it,
Right.
but I suspect we probably will not be meeting that night. Okay, so Dennis has to leave, thank you for your input.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
thank you, Dan.
Paul,
Yes, sir.
I don't know if Sean, a couple times looked like he wanted to say something.
No, I'm here to gather information myself. You guys have put a lot of work into this, and I need to get buy-in, and the department needs to get buy-in, and so that's what I'm here, to educate myself to what because we're not bought into everything either. I think we've been disenfranchised over the years of seeing it fail and fail. So a lot of us, so I need to come and educate myself on what you're doing and make sure because if we don't have buy-in, that's no good for you guys either.
Has anything we said been like totally like, no, that's absolutely got that wrong?
No, nothing I've heard tonight. My only comment would be like, we talked about response times. A station doesn't respond to the calls. If an empty station's there, no one responds from the empty station. That's one point. That's the only point I'd like to make. It doesn't change response times by having two stations if one's unmanned. But other than that,
So that-
How often do we respond and we're on our way back from, say, Franklin Hospital? How often do I don't know if you'd even be able to tell. How often does the responding crews leave from the station versus how often are they already out?
where we're responding from, we don't track that data. Where we track where we're actually responding from. We'll say it on the radio, but there's no way to track
See it.
where.
Really? You can't?
Yeah, there's no like in NIFRS in the New Hampshire ESR. It's the state. We use the state
All right,
software
let me
now.
just ask a silly question for my own education. say a call came in and both the ambulance and the engine responded,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get, and they're at the site,
Yep.
and then you get another call, and how often is it that you don't need all four personnel there, so one of those vehicles responds to that second call from,
Very often. That would be, so we have that app you use, the reason we use that, the reason we got it in the first place, is to know who's responding from a call member. So from that perspective, the captain on duty can make the decision from that scene. So say we're out in Concord Road and we get towed to Bean Hill Road. Well, it doesn't make sense to go back to Park Street. So we go up to Bean Hill Road if a call member is at the station, and so they meet us at the call with the ambulance. So that doesn't have to be a EMS provider. Dwayne Harbor's the best call member we have. He goes down to that station, he gets the piece of apparatus we need, and he meets that second piece of apparatus. It's the same thing if it's like an alpha level call, say on an alpha level, only 2 people would go. So often, say the vet's home, the 2 people at the vet's home, you have 2 more people back at Center Street. We don't have an ambulance. It'd be awesome if we did, but we don't. And in the calls in East Tilton, Dwayne can take, or I don't want to keep saying Dwayne, but a call member can take that ambulance, whether they're an EMS provider or not, and meet us at that call. And then if they're an apparatus driver, they can take the engine back while the 2 people on the engine can take that call. So we do have protocols and operations and guidelines in place to make that happen. Sometimes you don't have a call member and the decision we have to drive back. And that's one thing, like if we split between Sanborn Road and, Park Street, we'd almost need 3 ambulances because so much of our time would be at Park Street. Imagine if something happened at the vet's home and I had to drive from Park Street all the way to Sanborn Road to get my second ambulance and then drive all the way back up this way. It would just be, the response times would be tremendous.
And your personnel would you'd have to have minimum of 4,
Yeah,
minimum, but that probably.
yeah.
but is that those kind of situations, the fraction?
No, that's the norm. 1 in 4 calls, more than 1 in 4. It's almost 1 in 3 now. 1 in 3 calls is the second call. So if it's a Delta, I don't know if does it say you have Delta Echo? Delta Echo, the engine goes, because those calls are typically very sick people or sick or injured people that 2 people just can't treat that patient. So you need at least a 3rd or 4th set of hands. They get that patient stabilized, they get them in the ambulance, and then they can go and take care of that second call. So, if we're averaging, I think we're averaging 6 calls a day, 6.5 somewhere. I don't want to give you the number, but so if 1 in 3 to 1 in 4 that happens, it's almost every day.
Right.
So it's pretty frequent.
Is that what you refer to as simultaneous?
There's simultaneous is overlapping. They're a little different numbers, but yeah.
Before you leave tonight, I want to talk to you about that, to bring up at tomorrow's meeting, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Please. Okay, to get back to,
Right, because we already published that we're gonna have public meetings.
oh, we didn't. Yeah, well, we did, but we didn't put dates.
We said, right.
Okay. So
Yeah.
we are going to have public meetings, one way or another.
So I don't think it's worth having any in October or potentially November.
don't?
Unless we have a location decision from the.
I don't think
No,
that's
I think-
relevant at all.
I think what I was thinking is that we say where we are today. Basically,
Exactly.
we've looked at this, but
Right.
I wanted it to be more organized than just not, that's why I was saying, we kind of need an agenda, and I think we should have a handout that just kind of summarizes,
I'm fine with
Yeah.
both of that.
But I just thought the 21st was rushing it, but I thought, well, we could still have a meeting.
At the very least, we should not do one next month, because then we can include all of the dates in the Northfield News.
Okay. What, by next month, you mean October or
Yeah.
November?
So
It would be November.
October has already gone out,
Right.
so we'd at least need to move the currently planned
There are
October
other
date.
places to advertise a meeting.
Is it being advertised in Tilton anywhere?
It hasn't been they haven't
We
been
haven't
advertised
advertised
at
the
all.
date yet.
So, I don't know what the coverage is, or whatever you want to call it, for the Northfield News. I know we do it every so frequent, but I don't know exactly how many people see it. I mean, how many people it's,
We could get the
What am I saying?
subscription count from the company, yeah.
I think a lot of people see it.
So,
I do.
so what I'd like to do is, how did you arrive at this, Lisa?
Because I saw one of your, I think the last time you said, well, I'd like to tell them this, where we've been, you know, what we've done. And then it came up like, it was almost like, well, we're not gonna just wing it, we're gonna have an agenda. So I kind of wrote down what I thought was in your head, but this is sort of what I thought
Okay.
we would do.
So does anybody have an issue with an agenda like this or similar to this?
So we had never discussed the meetings at all in person as a group, so we didn't know, you know, really what the goal was, what was going to be, you know, presented. So I think we definitely need an agenda. We definitely need
Okay,
like
do you,
materials.
have you reviewed this, and is there?
I don't think we should vote. I don't think we should vote or approve any materials at this point, you know, in this meeting.
Is
but-
there anything on here that you don't approve of? Or that you would like to change? Because this is why I'm asking, Nate, because what I'm gonna ask you is that if there's nothing on here that you don't approve of, what I'm gonna ask you for is for each of us to do our flyer that we're gonna send out, okay? Each one of us to do our flyer.
What do you mean?
Do you
You-
want
you
each
did
of
a
us
nice
to propose
flyer.
an agenda that
No.
we bring to the next?
No. We're gonna put together a flyer that we're gonna distribute, okay?
A flyer was already put together. is
I
my
like
understanding.
your flyer.
Oh, you like my flyer?
I love your
Okay.
flyer.
You love my flyer?
I do, I think it was, I
Okay.
was,
So what I wanna do is incorporate this into my flyer. That's
No.
Brittany's
No.
flyer.
no,
No, absolutely not. That's too much
No.
information.
right. They need to come to the meeting, but what I would like to do is
Wait a
figure out,
minute,
what is
I-
the objective of the meeting?
I'm hearing a different thing than I think you heard. You want to incorporate that
This,
into the flyer.
yes.
Makes perfect sense.
I want to
What's the
incorporate this
hesitation?
into the flyer so that we let people see what the information that we're going to distribute at the meeting is. Whether or not they understand it, that's even, I mean, if they don't understand it, they can come to the meeting.
There are people who will decide whether or not they're gonna go based on what they're gonna talk about that? Yeah, I'm going. Oh yeah, I'm no interest in that, but I wanna talk about this, so I'm gonna go.
I mean, you can smooth it out so it doesn't look like an agenda.
Right.
And you can come up
It's
with,
an outline.
you can come up with,
Bullet
yeah,
agenda
bullet
is
top-
a-
topic,
Well, you could leave out the bullet points, because then you could,
Right,
you
just-
could put, yeah,
you know,
But one of
items
the
to be
things that-
reviewed or.
right. I have an objective right there. I don't know our objective of these meetings, because we have not discussed it in this meeting.
The objectives is to inform the public on what we're doing and why we're doing it. It's as simple as that. That's the objective.
So all the
So
meetings are
that-
gonna be the same, right?
Correct.
All the informational meetings.
Correct.
So that ought to be written right out. That's our objective of the meeting. So it's to inform the public of, so I can quote. I think we just, it's like a mission statement. You want it written, so
But
that,
what I don't want to do is, I don't want to overcomplicate this,
Correct.
okay? What I want to do is, I want to inform the public of what we're doing. That's all I want to do.
and
okay?
maybe this is too
And I-
much information.
And I understand what you want to do, is you want to standardize it such that every meeting, the same information is disseminated.
Well, because you had made that statement
Well, it should be.
at the last,
It
you
should
had
be
said
a
you wanted
PowerPoint.
it to be the same each time.
Yes, I do. I want everybody to hear the same thing.
Right, and that's where I thought to myself, we can't possibly do
If
that
they
unless we
don't,
have an agenda.
I'll go and I'll talk
And
to
you'll hear
Nate
one thing,
and say,
and
and I'll tell him what I heard, then he tells him what, and by the time my golf story gets to Sean, we went fishing,
right,
right? I mean,
So, I mean, I think it's a great idea to have public, a public meeting.
but I want to keep it simple. I really do. I want to keep it
So
simple.
maybe this is too much, maybe they don't want to hear.
No, I don't
They-
think it's too much, but I don't want to overcomplicate the process.
I think maybe putting on the flyer, we will be discussing, committee action, the committee objective, actions to date, and, contract work and, next steps, but like,
And then
Putting all of it in
hand
there
something
would
like
be-
this out at the meeting, then that's fine.
I
I'm
mean,
fine with that. If
I
you want to
would,
take the headings and put that in the flyer, I'm fine with that.
Well, I think the headings, yes, but I think the objective should be in there. That's why I was saying write it out,
Sure.
right on the flyer. So maybe,
well, isn't, isn't
I guess,
the
an
objective the
information is,
informational
I guess
meeting?
that is,
Like, that's what, like,
So when
Obviously, we'll discuss
when
the
I'm
objective.
speaking, I use the outline and you
Sure.
introduce who's there. We've got,
Absolutely.
we've got Tim or we've got Eric or, I'm so-and-so and our committee members or
Yep.
whatever. You always introduce. And then you say the objective of this meeting is
Right,
to provide you with information.
exactly. An update,
And, right, and I think
Information.
maybe you don't put all this information bulletized, maybe you put, and
Right, and then
items
the-
to be reviewed include,
Building committee actions to date, but you don't, this is our notes to ourselves.
Right.
Okay, this is where we were in 2019. Because I think they were gonna wanna hear, well, okay, you changed direction, why? And why did we choose, we changed form of contracts several times too. We had an architect, we went to somebody else, and then all of a sudden, so that's going to probably confuse the public. Maybe we don't go down that path. But we did it, right?
oh, I think we need to be ready to answer that question if somebody asks.
And explain
Why
the
did you
design
go
build.
why did you go design build?
Is anybody here that can answer that question? Because I wasn't on the committee when they decided to do that.
well, I think the simple, easy answer was, it was a recommendation brought forth
From the
that
state.
allowed the committee to have more control and to come up with hopefully a lower cost solution.
Remember what you just said, because I probably won't, but I think you're dead on. Because in design build, the owner has more say, you can control more things, including, guess what, the cost.
Yes,
I
because
mean,
you're
I'm not
you-
qualified to go out
yes.
into great detail about
No.
exactly how design build varies point by point from other types, but in the past, we have hired an architect who's done all this work for the committee.
Were you on the police station build?
I was not. I was on one of the earlier ones, but not the one that
No,
they
this
actually.
so I guess, like, what is the objective for the rest of the evening? What are we, trying to accomplish? I think not all of us are gonna be, like, graphic design capable as
You
far
don't
as,
have
like,
to, don't worry
producing,
about
like,
designing, don't worry
posters.
about designing it. If you do something like what Lisa did here is fine.
Okay, so
because
just have everyone
I have
produce an
Brittany.
agenda that we can then.
Yeah, Brittany will take care of the graphics. Brittany is the best.
You may be even able to even get it
She's probably working into that one.
into that. You could give her this and cross out. Well, even introduction, you don't need to have it in an agenda, right? The objective, we already know it's an information meeting. You could just say, come learn,
3, 4, and
building
5.
committee actions to date. And I don't know, should we even present the contractor's work to date? That's what they're supposed to present. I can't answer questions about the contractors.
No,
I mean,
but
I would-
other
We
than
can just
to
say that
have-
they did it
Other
and you
than to
can
say
read
the
it.
contractor, this is where we're at, and this is
This
what
is
the
where the
contractor has
contractor-
done
Right.
for us so
But I
far.
don't think we shouldn't,
No, we should not be presenting
Present
their
their-
No, we should make
Yeah,
the
that's fine.
packets that they provided us available at the meeting.
The most important
I'd be
thing,
careful about that,
Yes,
because
it's
everything's
copyright.
preliminary right now.
right.
Let's wait until stuff's final before we start distributing it,
The-
because
yeah,
that can come back to bite us.
Well,
But I
they
mean,
said that
the
they've
committee's
completed.
recommendation was made based on that data, and if we're talking about the process and our recommendation, people are gonna want to be able to see, and we're talking about what the contractors have done. If we're saying, here's what they've produced, and they go, okay, well, show it to us, and we go,
And those
no.
documents
Are
at
they
some
on
point
the
should be on our
show it to
website.
them.
They're
I
not
can
right
show them
now.
the space needs study. I can show it to them.
I don't think I'd hand out copies.
No.
You know, I
We
would-
should have
Well,
physical
here's the-
copies available
Okay,
for them
I don't know,
to.
are they, well, I
read.
guess you have to ask, are they ready for this to be released? This is their work.
Yeah, but it's here in a public meeting on the public table.
So then
You're
it should be
gonna-
up
if
on,
someone
then it
wants
should be
that-
up on the
If someone
link.
wants it, that's a
should-
huge statement. If someone wanted it, they
Exactly.
would be here right now saying, could I see a copy of that?
Or maybe we need a link on the website. That's not, I don't know.
I think
With that
is
same argument, if they wanted informational meetings, they'd be here demanding informational meetings. They don't know what
Okay,
they
but
want because they don't know what we
I
have.
think the most important aspect of the meetings that we're proposed having is to hear the questions that they're asking. It's almost like you need somebody in the background just writing down the
Well,
questions.
that was where I was gonna be the next
Because-
thing, because you can't, if you're a speaker, you cannot answer a question and write it down at the same time.
Right.
So there has to be what I would
Somebody.
call somebody that's there writing down the question that was asked. You could record it, and then
Why don't we just record the meetings?
we
But
could record the
the
meetings.
most important aspect is to hear the
Get the
questions that are
feedback.
asked,
Absolutely.
because those are the questions that you're gonna need to answer at the bond hearing, at the district meeting, those are the questions that you, obviously to make the district meeting go as smooth as possible is to provide as much information. You try to
Ahead of
avoid
time.
having the public ask the question because you've already answered it. Because if they ask a question that you're not prepared to answer, then you go right off the rails and
They go
things go
south in a
south real
hurry.
fast.
Things go south really quickly.
So the most important, to me, the most important part of these meetings is to hear the questions that are asked.
And listen
So
to
these
the
are just talking points to get people to ask you questions.
So even next steps, I'm not sure what the next steps are. Maybe we cross that out. We don't know the schedule, maybe we cross that out.
I
And
would argue we
jump
don't
right
know.
to questions. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know what the next steps are at this point,
Right,
or
so,
the schedule.
so we shouldn't have it on our agenda.
Right. I mean, we
Well,
can
the
look
next
at,
steps will be to continue
we can look at the
continue our work
schedule.
to move forward.
We can
That's
look
the
at the
next step.
schedule that Lorero gave us, the Gantt chart, and
I believe they're waiting on a location to move forward on their work. So they're waiting on the,
Well, that's
Recommendation
not
from
what we
that.
said. That's why I brought this. I'll read the motion that we made.
this was from last week's.
Last week's meeting. Motion to have the building committee continue to look at the space needs until the location is determined. We asked the chief to report back to the commissioners the following. Have Lorero pause the design of the fire station and continue space needs evaluation. Come up with a fallback plan if unable to demolish Center Street Station. Determine if there is any historic significance to Center Street Station and find out about, find out about possible curb cut or expansion of existing curb cut at Park Street. And find out response time changes based on the location. So we only asked Lorero to pause designing the building, but we asked them to continue the space needs evaluation.
I thought that was all
that's
done.
completed.
Except
Unless we have
we haven't had a
We haven't reviewed the space
right.
needs
We
in
haven't
detail.
reviewed it as a committee and asked
And
questions.
provided
So
feedback.
I guess our next meeting should be formally reviewing this space needs study then, like getting multiple copies of like large-scale prints of the charts
I think we
and
have-
sheets.
We have information in the packet. We just need to sit there and
And go through
go
it.
through it.
But
And
the
that's gonna
packet
take
has
time.
like those additional, yeah.
You
And
needed
so-
an 11 by 17, is that what you need?
Well, I know certain people could not
3 by
read
5
them last
feet would be
time,
good.
and we needed something larger than that, yeah.
Flag
Even-
size.
Even this, I struggle with too.
Oh, I do.
And I think there was some larger copies that came about
There you
it.
go.
Jim brought this, and I had to try it.
I think he brought some larger ones to the commissioners
So
as
the,
well.
yeah, the fire district has a printer that big, right?
Copier?
I believe it, I don't, we don't have paper that big, but I believe it would, I don't know.
Oh,
To tell you the truth, I don't know how big that
He
would
said
print.
that he could,
I know we can do legal size, but I don't know.
Tables can
He had
go up.
multiple large copies like that at the station. He just did not bring them all.
Yeah, because I think the
Oh.
commissioners.
This is, because this is hard to, I mean, I can sort of read it, but I can bring a magnifying glass.
yeah, that would be.
Who needs a headache after
Right.
that?
But really, it's only a few pages, that, we've got this, and then we've got the plan, the.
Courtney, could you please ask the chief to bring as large a copy as he can of the program and equipment list of the space needs study that Lorero provided us? Please. Program
two
and equipment
pages?
list, 2 pages, one-sided. Thank you. One for Nate, one for Lisa,
I guess we.
and the biggest one you have for Kevin.
With the magnifying glass.
With the
Lines of
magnifying binoculars.
And a couple other in case Derek or
Yeah,
Matt
a
are
couple,
here.
and a
Dennis.
couple others, please.
Yeah.
And does everyone have a copy of the space needs study?
Yes.
Yeah, that was a previous
distributed.
document.
Yes.
Yeah. I have the email version. My puppy ate.
Oh, sure, my
My
dog ate my
dog.
homework.
I have the appendix for the geo study. I just do not have the space needs study.
Oh, that's funny, because I had extra copies and I threw them out last week.
I did too.
But yes, we can.
Counter height is
Chief, could you, or Courtney, could you please provide Nate a dog-free copy of the space needs study also, please? And
So I've got two.
does everyone have copies of the building sites?
I believe I do.
Okay, because we will be using that
That
to
size,
discuss. These are easily read. Okay, thank you, Courtney. All right, so, thank you, Lisa, for doing the,
I like your draft
The draft.
meeting agenda.
So, but it's not gonna happen in October, so the next
Okay.
meeting, right, is that what we
yes,
determined?
I think we can agree to that. Let's,
That we're not gonna hold this
in
October
October,
21st?
correct.
Okay.
So I will let Brittany know so that she will no longer reserve the library. Let's hang on to the November 4th and November 18th meetings until we can,
Yeah, ideally, I would like to schedule the third meeting between those two, not on a Saturday. Just in terms of like, because not everyone can come to something at the library, Saturday afternoon, because, maybe they, that's their kids' sports, whatever.
Are they afternoon?
Morning, but still, you're right, some people may come on an evening versus a Saturday morning, because
Okay.
any parent that has kids' sports, they're there at sports.
I would say like Sunday, late afternoon or evening might be a good time, just as far as you're not
well, I think
interfering
it's
with
gonna end up
church.
being a weeknight because
I
I
would
don't
think
think
a
the
weeknight.
library is open in the
Oh.
evening on Sunday. But we can certainly do a Wednesday or Thursday. The library is open till 6, they're open till 8 o'clock on Thursdays. So they're open till 6 o'clock every night. 6 o'clock may not work for working families, but
Right.
8 o'clock, I think we can, I think Friday nights are open till 8, but I would like, you guys to think about, I don't want to be the only voice from this committee. I think it's unfair for the community to only hear from one person, so I want other volunteers from this committee. We've got all 3 commissioners coming, and I think we should have 3 members from this committee coming. So think about whether or not you can fit it in your schedule.
I think we should also have someone from the fire, fire department, available, just, because people may have department-related questions. I mean, ideally, the chief would be there
I think
for all
what
the
you want,
sessions.
I think what you don't want is, I think you don't want the chief there. And I think you want to keep as few people as possible there. I don't think you want this to be a public meeting. I think you want it to be the commissioners and you want it to be the building committee. Now, if you want 2 members from the building committee, I think that's a good idea.
Well, you need somebody to be able to write. If somebody say you're speaking, somebody else has to be there to take it. You still think so? Okay.
Maybe, well, I'm perfectly fine with 2 people from the building committee. I think we, you know, I think we can bounce things off each other as well. Two of us can certainly speak better than one of us. So, but I think we should shy away from having the chief there. Whether or not any of the firemen want to be there. We have 2 firemen on the committee. They're welcome to join. If any of the firemen live in town, they're welcome to join from the audience.
I'm sure we'll post that at the fire station.
Well, the other thing is we're
What's
not
ridiculous?
trying to replace the meetings that Lorero is going
We are
to
not.
do.
Correct.
So I think this is more of an informational meeting on what we, the committee, is
Exactly.
doing.
Okay, so more just
Not-
what the
not-
process is.
Exactly.
Than the
building
actual
itself.
project. Because Lorero has people that do this for a living, and that's part of their scope.
And I, you know, of course, I'm thinking and hoping that it'll be very casual kind of.
That's
Oh,
the
absolutely.
We're
idea.
just sitting
Yes.
here,
Right.
you know, we've come with some things we
Bring
wanna
a couple
share.
cups of coffee.
And how are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. That's
Right.
how it will be. Yeah. All right, anybody have anything else for tonight?
Did we
Yes.
decide our next meeting?
Yes,
I sat right here and missed it.
you
I-
did. Right over your head, I said it
October
3 times, but I've forgotten what the date is.
October
October
23rd,
23rd,
5:30.
5:30.
Oh, hell, I wrote
You
it
you
down.
wrote it down, you wrote it down there, you wrote it down there.
Let's go over your
Mine, it's a
schedule.
terrible
Want me to send you
thing.
an email?
I need that break, I have a lot of fun.
Mine, it's a terrible thing to lose. Okay.
Now withdraw the question?
Let me send you a text.
Is there anything else anyone else wants to discuss? So we're just gonna make any general changes anybody wants to make to the draft, and we'll discuss that next week. I'll talk to Brittany. I have a motion to adjourn.
Do we want to discuss Nate's email that he
So
mentioned?
About
we
what?
can do that next week.
We
because I
can do it
don't
next
think
week because
everyone
we're not
saw it.
holding the October.
Well,
Right? Okay.
yes, and then, well, not next week, I guess.
November.
So did you
In 2
get
weeks.
Nate's email today? Was that today, Nate, that you sent that? I read it today.
Today. Yeah, so at our next meeting is before the due date.
He
Because it's good
just
to
gave
discuss
a
the
calendar
newsletter.
of dates
Yes,
of
yes.
when
Here, not
Northfield
emails
publishes
don't
the newsletter
work for
and
me.
what the,
I did see
Yeah,
that.
and
what
so,
the deadlines are
luckily,
We'll be here.
for like the
yeah,
next
luckily,
5 months or so.
luckily, that works out where we can discuss it, and then I will send out a draft ahead of time, but, yeah, so
Well done
essentially,
with that.
I sent out an email that just has when the Northfield news is getting published,
I did
when
see
it's,
that.
you know, when it's due, what I had proposed as
So-
dates where I would send out a draft, but some of it was pending due to we're not meeting on Christmas, I'm assuming, and so that date may change, and allow us to vote on, you know, the content in person versus just doing it in email, but I was just hoping to make it a little more streamlined in the
So
process.
when you send something and I try to look at it, I see 2/3 of it.
So do
Because
I.
you're looking at.
The other side, I can't beg, borrow, or steal enough space on the screen to go that way with
It's
it.
like
So this was just an email.
It's like the shield in the Tilton Northfield Fire District portion of it is offset to the left, and then the text is offset to the right, and
Yeah, you're not sending a PDF when, he's not talking about your email today, he's talking about when you sent out the newsletter,
Yeah, I could,
You can't, I couldn't see
And
it.
the
I just
formatting
looked
was
at
all lost.
Because I sent it as a Word doc, and then when I opened it, it still
On your
had
phone.
Yeah.
the phone.
Yeah, if you could, I typically, when I send something like that, I'll convert it to a PDF and attach it.
Okay, yeah, I can do that next time.
Thank you. Anything,
all that talk is, look at it
portable
go.
document format, PDF?
I know, I actually know what PDF means, and
I
I
didn't
know
know that's what it stood for.
I learned it in this meeting a while back about the cursor. That little thing that flies around.
I'll honor a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion comes first.
Oh, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
The time is, Courtney, what time?
7:01?
7:01. Thank you all very much for your time and your effort.